All things conversational. Hosted by Nativa Bryant.
All things conversational. I am your host, Nativa Bryant. Alongside me, I have my guest co-host, Ms. Sherry Adams, who is a writer and also a director. My other guest co-host, Dr. Tamika Manning, the educator, who also has her own talk show, The Chamber Talk Show. And today on All Things Conversational, we have Mr. Glenn Ratcliffe, the actor, the author, the writer, the philanthropist, and the creator of his new movie, Tested. He has a video out with Diane Keaton and Justin Bieber, Ghost. He's also worked alongside with Mike Marlowe, Dean Cain, Ernie Hudson, Steve Carroll, Gregory Williams, just to name a few. Mr. Ratcliffe, welcome to All Things Conversational.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I sincerely appreciate it, and I'm very, very happy to be here.
All right, and we are excited to have you on the show today to talk about your upcoming movie, Tested. And to start it off, I want to ask this question. Can you tell us how your journey began and what brought you to this place we call awareness?
I think it came from my other life, actually. Life is a continuum. Life begins death and death begins life. It's a cycle. And I was raised in a very tough time. My father was an alcoholic. My mother put us in the orphanage. I have two sisters I've not even seen yet. I was put in an orphanage. So the fact that I came as nobody gave me, in a funny sort of way, an advantage that I would not be domesticated by a system of rules and regulations, because I never thought I belonged. So at an early age, I could perceive reality very, very different. I remember at school, the guy goes, "What do you want to be?" I said, "An astronaut," because I wanted to be something out of this planet. So at an early stage, there were certain synchronicities and serendipities that suggested that I knew I was a compressed entity with a label called Glenn, but I knew there was more than that. So to answer your question, embryonically, at least, I feel at an early stage, I believe awareness was granted me, and I wasn't imprisoned by this false society of rules and regulations.
That's interesting that you say that. I've done a little research on you, and, being that you've been an orphan, and you spoke about playing soccer for a number of years, and then as well as, being involved in a horrific accident. As you are promoting the movie Tested, do you think that during that period of your life that you were tested? And it's a two-part question. And do you think that as many things were going into your life and experiences, do you think that that helped you portray the role in the movie Tested?
These are very good questions. Thank you so much for that. To answer your question, my evolution at the time of the accident wasn't complete. So, well, let's go backtrack. The evolution wasn't complete with the soccer. When I never made it as a soccer player, my ego was, poor me. I put all my life into this. Poor me. What about me? Why? I was like a victim. I was a victim. I was blaming people because the way I got stopped is I was actually with my girlfriend at the time, and I came down the stairs and her parents came back, and I went down the stairs too quick and snapped my ankle. Wow. But this was the same lady that brought me to America from Scotland. So there's always a silver lining. God always has a plan. But at the time, even though I had awareness, I still felt a victim. I think to unshackle the victim in us all, we must destroy the ego, because the ego is the victim, because it wants things all the time. So if you want nothing and know you're everything, you don't need anything. But at that time, I wanted soccer. So I to be honest with you, I felt angry, pissed off. I was angry. What I put all my life that I'm a damn good player and broke my leg. You know, my dream is gone. I'm mad at the world. I was angry. And then the accident, that was a test that I failed, because the enlightened person would say, okay, I accept it, so it is, but I wasn't there yet. And it wasn't until the car accident and some time later, where the altered perception of reality, where I actually transcended time and space, went into the quantum field, where my body lay on the ground in the accident, but my awareness was there. So I thought, I'm not my body, I'm awareness. I'm not, this is like a robotic, like a conscious robot with a nervous system and a brain, like a computer with a bad virus that's running me. And I'm really omnipotent up here. I said, well, that's kind of strange. So when I pop back in, the machinery, which I call it, the body, has all these old habits, because human beings are constructed of habits. Continual habits develop your personality, which develop your character, which structure in a perception of reality. They structure that. So I had to undo that. It was like undoing everything I had ever learned. And so I knew that, I didn't call it a test at the time, but I knew this is a wake-up call. Just what happened to me. I'm really light, and I'm thinking my name is Glenn, but that's nothing but a label. Then I thought, oh my God, we've all been labeled. We're all like in a matrix. We're all labels. We're all fake. We're all, oh, I want this, I want that. That's a label of my ego expressing, I want to take something. Where God is, I want to give something. So we got the whole thing flipped around, backwards. So that was the incident that created, and that was maybe 30 years ago, 25 years ago. And it took me that long to figure this stuff out, to look back in retrospect through recapitulation and say, wow, I was tested. And that's where the wisdom of this movie is, because if I can tell everyone they're being tested, they can pass that test. It's not a death sentence. They can get out of it.
Well, you said something, Mr. Ratcliffe, that was very profound. And you said, God wants to give. And so I'm a spiritual person. I know that we are made in his image. And so it appears at this moment, you now have taken on that role of giving back, because you preach equality and you preach love. And as we move toward the trailer and we move toward the movie itself and learning more about it, tell me a little bit about how you took on that quality and why. You've been tested. We know that for sure. Now you have, on the other hand, become a giver yourself. You're giving back. You've been in the acting industry. We know that that's a mission. We know that that's a purpose. So speak to that, please.
Very good question. Thank you for bringing that up. To give back, it was a difficult step. You know, it's easy to say, oh, I give back and not really do anything. It came with the actual understanding of the workings of God's mind. Everything that's made has to be destroyed to be remade. The universe is self-perpetuating, feeding off itself, expanding and expanding. So this profound realization that God and Buddha and Muhammad, all about love being the key, they're actually right, because it's the makeup of the universe, how the universe is made up of love and giving. And this power of this universe is so great. If you're out of sync with it, it's going to slap you. This is not a joke here, because the way that the universe is structured, its bandwidths of energy, God is made of sound and light. And everything's a myriad of conception of formations by man's imaginings. So we have created this world. So what this really means is God, it's love. It's to express beauty and harmony, equality, sharing, compassion. That's the source. So if you want to return to your power, you have to return to that. The ego, the devil as we call it, is the kicking us out of the Garden of Eden because of the subject-object consciousness. Oh, you're a woman, I'm a man. I'm better than you. You know, that we separate by judgment. We judge everyone. So it's not about judgment. It's about seeing the other person in you. You're me and I'm you. I may have a different body, but in my heart, we're the same. So that's where it came about, was this realization and looking at the planet from a distance and seeing the pandemic, the homelessness, big pharma giving out these drugs, the poison in the food, the poison in the air, the greenhouse effect, certain things, old people dying in homes because their insurance is running out. Certain things led me to see that we're trapped in like a matrix of evil. And people are so stimulated by fear because we're wired with what's called a mammalian brain, which is a flight or fight mechanism to survive in the Stone Age days, but it's predominant. So my whole movement is to initiate connection with the frontal cortex, which is the executive center of the brain, which can give people an understanding. If you understand that you're connected to everyone, and the more love you give is the more love you get, you'll change your thought. And this thought will change your action, and these actions will change the world and create a paradigm shift.
All right. Well, I have a question. I want to bring it back to when you were being tested. We all know that sometimes when people go through a test, that they also, in some ways, pick up addictions to help them go through their test. When you were going through your test of life, and if this is too much to ask, did you pick up an addiction? Did you have anything to help you go through, whether it was love or you gravitated to someone? What helped you get through this test?
I had addictions, to be honest with you. I used to drink too much. I did too much drugs, too much sex. I had addictions. That's perfectly true. I had my pain with alcohol. I don't drink now. I don't do drugs now. I just pray and meditate, and I'm a vegan. But I had to go through that hell to get to heaven. So I don't be. If we're not perfect. If you've done any of these things, acknowledge it and say, I did that. I am sorry. I have sinned. Please forgive me.
Earlier, you talked about your father. You talk about him. I see that compassion in your eyes. Do you feel in some way that you are like your father?
That's a very good question. My father and I had a very strange relationship. In fact, I have two half brothers. My father was a devastatingly handsome salesman. And he had a lot of female companions, very unfaithful to my mother, which I disliked a lot. There's a strange story. My father being put in a mental institution because he's Alzheimer's when his new wife died, and she changed the will for all his money. My mother, he was wandering around. My mother wouldn't take him in because he cheated on her, and they put him in a mental institution where he died. He was pulled a cattle drought and he bled to death in a care home. But that's an aside. It just shows you the karma is what I'm talking about here. I do have my father in me. My father was a good communicator. Back in my day, I was tempted with females. I did drink. I had a lot of DNA connection to my father. My mother, it's a strange story. One of my hardships was because my father was in jail at the time when I was put in the orphanage, he needed 2 signatures to put me away full time. My dad said no, because he wanted to control my mom by me being there. So needless to say, what I got every day, you just like your dad, you just like your dad. So as well as no love, I got non-acceptance. And then this, it's nothing about a victim. I'm just trying to inspire people, because when you're filled up with the Holy Spirit and wisdom, it's better than being filled up by an ego, right? Who wants things all the time. So my father did play a pivotal role. I remember when he died, it took me like 2, because I never really said I loved my dad. I'd said it in the Alzheimer's home a couple of years back, but I couldn't comprehend it. I kept saying, I love you, Dad. I love you. I love you, because I was fearful he was going to go. And we'd never made that final connection. And I remember he died. I broke down in the limousine going to the funeral, and I started shaking from head to toe. My mother goes, pull yourself together. I was shaking. I said, I don't know what it is. And it was pouring rain, and I threw the dirt in, and the preacher said, we accept our loss. And that was the most beautiful words. We accept the loss, because I hadn't accepted it. But nonetheless, it was pouring rain. I stayed for 3 hours. I think I got pneumonia there, and cried and sobbed on my dad's grave. So I'll never really forget that. And again, the moral, I feel like a moral for many people is love your parents before it's too late, because I suffered the pain of not doing it. So I want to give my pain back to people so they don't need to go through what I went through.
I think it is phenomenal that you are being transparent and to share how you were tested and how things relating to your father affected you. And do you think that by going through those situations with your father, that this also helped you portray the other roles that you made, characters in the movie Tested as well?
Yes, that's very, very true. Because my father, even though he wasn't an actor, was a master salesman, right? So he could convince people. And I remember him always saying, "Wear some nice shoes and a nice watch." His advice for the life for my dad. Yes, that has indeed. Because when my dad's dad died when he was 8, so he never had a father. So he was never a father to me because he never had a father. So it's all, all what happened for the karmic reasons it happened. So you accept that, and you know that I'm not Glenn, and I'm an omnipotent being like we all are. And this body and the experience that I'm schlepping around is just for the one purpose, to get closer to God. And convert all my disharmony into harmony and love. So my father played a major role because I'm a continuation of him. I have the blueprints, the DNA. So one of the exercises I did is that to love my dad, here I have some advice for you. Be this, and this. But the love you give is the love you get back. So I was advising myself. Dad, I wish you were more honest. Dad, I wish you weren't a womanizer. So in retrospect, it was me I was talking to.
Oh, okay.
That healed me in a journaling exercise.
Very good.
All right, everyone. We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to give the audience an opportunity to watch the trailer, Tested.
We're all here by divine appointment. Is there an answer? Oh, yes, there is an answer. And that answer is Jesus Christ. The book of Revelations tells us the end is near, and you have a choice to make. Eternity's a long, long time. You can choose light or you can choose darkness. The choice is yours. As Jesus said, I am the truth. And the devil will tell you what you see is real and what you hear is real. But that is an illusion. That's the truth. We are all one. Christ said it. I am. You are. We are all one because Jesus Christ said it. I am the light. I am the way. And I am the truth.
Welcome back to All Things Conversational. Once again, I'm your host, Nakiva Bryant. Alongside of me with my guest co-host, Sherry Adams, Dr. Tamika Manning, and our wonderful, wonderful guest, Mr. Glenn Ratcliffe, the writer of Tested, the trailer that you just have seen and witnessed, one that will be a movement for the world. And we're going to start off with some more questions for you with our co-host, Ms. Tamika Manning.
I love it. I see the seriousness of the character. You've already stated that this is a very serious movement. We're talking about changing the world, this movement. Talk to us about the preparations that led up to the actual role in the movie. Of course, you've cast it yourself. You're in there, and you get an opportunity to live out what it is that you are trying to portray for us to all see, and of course, make a change so that we too can be ambassadors for this movement. Speak to that. I love the passion.
Thank you for that. The main inspiration came from Billy Graham. He was a great evangelist. He went around the world to Russia, Romania, showing the Bible. He stood for truth. He went everywhere. Every president wanted to talk to him. And I studied Billy Graham, and the man was phenomenal. He had great charisma, and he stood on truth. And even though they said, don't go to Russia, people would hang from the rafters to see this man. And I was struck by this man. And I thought, this is who my character is. But I'm going to embroider him with my personal pain, because the world is sick. And I don't mean it in a negative connotation. I mean it, we've accepted mediocrity where genius is self-herring. Mediocrity is actually self-bestowed. We bestow it by the system that puts us down. And the preparation for that was to have that enlightened, powerful connection to God. And in the story itself, I'm creating a unification summit. I don't like the fragmentation of unity. We're all God, we're all one. What is this religion, that religion, this color, that color? That's all BS. That's an illusion. And I'm going to cut through that and bring people together so that we love one another. So the preparation was a composite of seeing Billy Graham and being deeply inspired by him, but also recognizing the archetypal pain that I had been through. All my life had been pain, but yet I was happy. I said, something's strange here. When I talk about these experiences, people would say that would devastate me, but I say, but I've forgiven them. And this emptiness allows the Holy Spirit to come in. So when you see this character, you see him with a child, which is innocent. That's the archetype, my daughter. She's innocent, she's an angel, she's not been domesticated yet. But then evil happens. Then what happens is I'm on my way to solve this as an enlightened person, but through a series of tipping points and corruption, through police, through government, through drugs, all the what I call the axis of evil, I put this as a resistance factor to the character, because in time and space, we all have these resistance. We all have corruption, be it paying too much for the house or the car payment or the rent or prejudice. We all have that. So what I wanted to show in time and space was how a good person could not conquer an evil system without wisdom, and he would fall. So I threw alcohol in there, and I threw ghosts, the apparition of my wife, to make the character eventually do a metamorphosis, like the Judas character, whatever. You start off as something, and you become something else because of the system. And I wanted to point out that we're all becoming someone else because of this system. We're losing ourselves because of this system. So when he discovers he's like that, he becomes a different person. He starts a revenge. He starts an evil. He starts this, and this. And that's why you have to listen very carefully to the narrative, because I show very clearly in time and space when he becomes homeless, he's doing the suicide scene. He's come from here to there. And that's not unusual, because you look outside, you'll see the homeless. This is not a joke. This is what's really going on. This movie's in real time. This is the only movie ever that's capturing the book of Revelation in real time. This is not some old 1940s, oh, this is the way it was, the Old Testament. No. This is, we're living it now. I'm capturing in real time the situation that the grave situation this planet's in. And if we don't do something about it, we'll perish. So hopefully that trailer will impact people to show the dichotomy of human nature. We have a soul, we have an ego. The ego is triggered by the system to make us destructive, to become reincarnated in a lower level continuous slavery on the planet Earth. So my job as an artist is to give enough wisdom so people will have a choice, that they're not a victim of this system, because they have wisdom. They go, well, that news is not right. that food is poison. You know, they'll start, wait a minute, I'm going to step back from this because I saw this movie. I saw this guy going on this roller coaster of adventures, but being put down, then getting back up, being put down, then getting back up.
How would you go about telling someone who has lost their faith in being tested? What do they need to do to get their faith back? I understand God when you say God, and God is truly the only one that can give us our faith back. But there are times when people that don't believe that they've walked away from God. Then what would you tell that person?
It's a very good question. That's reality, because people are walking away from the faith because the kitchen's getting hot. And, you know, if you can't hear the trumpet, you're just going to go over the cliff with the rest of them, because it's not a joke now. This is the time in history of revelation. This is the time. It's not up the street. It's not down the road. It's now. So the people of real faith, they will stand strong. I wanted to show that because of a corrupt system, we can lose our faith. And if we lose our faith, we become puppets of a system. We become victims. Oh, I need the handout, the pandemic. Oh, I need my unemployment. I need this, I need that. So they become codependent to a corrupt system, and they become no more than a cog in a wheel. They're used up, they die, and that's it. It's a tragedy. The human beings are angels, but we're living like, you know, poor victims. So to get your faith back, it's not in the church, it's not in the Bible, it's in your heart. You've got to go inward and connect to God as an experience, not as a hypothesis, not, hey, Mr. Preacher, hey, can I do the 7 Hail Marys? You'll bring me some cash. No. That's a confused individual whose mind has been robbed of intuition and God's grace. So it comes with restoring your faith, means restoring yourself. Yeah, you have an internal resurrection, you know. So my advice to people who are thinking they're losing their faith is to take a few days alone, be it in a park, be it in a desert, but be alone with yourself. And don't listen to voices. Just listen to your heart and just say, who am I? What's going on here? What's happening here? You know, the preacher's not saving me in the church. The rent's going up. What's going on? So rather than responding to the preacher not being good or the rent going up, because these are effects, you're controlled by effects. If these don't work out, you have no happiness. But it should be the other way around. You should say, what? I know who I am. You can't.
So, like you said, even through all that, they're being tested.
Yes, test.
Sherry, go ahead. You have a question.
You know what's interesting? I watch you get into the characterizations of being a pastor, being a grieving husband, a father, and then as a man. Sometimes people forget that people who are pastors or in leaderships of great churches, they are the ones who are over the sheep. But sometimes they forget that they are human and they too can fall from grace by different experiences that they have in their life. I mean, they're human. And some people forget that, but by watching the trailer, you can tell that at some point, yes, I've gone through this and I've gone through that, but yet I'm still going to try to hold on to as much faith as possible. And then at some point you're redeemed. I mean, that speaks volumes to not just the viewers to know as an individual, but also as a pastor and leaders of churches. They are human as well. And then I look at the fact that you're really an inspiration, because you speak about coming from nothingness and feeling that nothingness as a child and leading yourself into an adult with a purpose. And that purpose is this movie that you have written called Tested, and how it applies not to just your life, but other lives as well.
Yes, thank you for that. That's exactly right. It's a microcosm, macrocosm thing. There's always been people. I started on the orphanage, the first shot of the camera, because I want to give recognition to those people in the orphanage. I talk about the homelessness, alcoholic. Everyone deserves to be recognized for their pain. And I don't leave a stone unturned, you know. At the end of the movie, you'll see I cut back to the preacher reading the book, right? Very end, you see me getting revenge. I'm the way, I'm the truth. Now that's the system. But really, the Holy Spirit is the guy reading the Bible at the very end.
That's a very, like Sherry said, that's a very powerful role to be a pastor. Have you ever done any other powerful roles in your life that made you just had to come to a point that you almost didn't want to play, but it took something out of you to play that role? Can you tell us about that? Can you tell the audience about that?
Yes, I would. 4 or 5 years ago, I was in a relationship for 18 years. A lady committed suicide. She hung herself, and I had to cut her down with a pair of scissors. It devastated me. It was the worst experience I ever had. I think I cried for 6 months. And even today, I have the post-traumatic syndrome, maybe, whatever. I still cry a lot about it, you know. However, there was a movie called Shaking Cup, where I was a famous opera singer, and I was very egotistical. I had a daughter, and I was ignoring her, and I was on the phone about Carnegie Hall. She came, "Daddy, play ball with me." I said, "No." She dropped the ball, car hit her, she died. So consequently, I remember that with the hanging, the suicide. I went, God, that's ringing true, because I felt guilty. I felt all these things. It's my fault. Everything's my fault. And I thought, wow, that's how this character feels. He feels it's his fault. So he becomes homeless. So it's called Shaking Cup. He's shaking a cup for money in the homelessness. So he went through that. And I kind of went through that. So I think I was, for a while there, I was not homeless, but it was like, I couldn't work. I was just frozen. I was very frozen. So I knew what he was feeling. I thought, wow, why is God giving me this? This is so painful. And then, of course, the girl comes from a ghost, and that's in my script, where the wife is coming as a ghost. So I'll find out the person that did that. And even though this was before, this set the template for a lot of testing. So it comes to, "Daddy, Daddy, get up." I'm sure you've seen the trailer. It's on either my YouTube YouTube channel, or it's on my website called Shaking Cup. "Daddy, get up, get up. You're a singer, you're a singer." No, I can't. Even though she's dead, I'm talking to a ghost, because my internal mechanism is crystallized where I can't accept the guilt that I ignored my daughter and she died. So for catharsis, she appears to me like I'm talking to no one, but she's there as a ghost. So that's the purpose of that is, you know, even though I went through a tragic time, everyone has to deal with their tragedies and stand up and be brave to them. Cry for years if you have to, but don't sweep it under the carpet.
Absolutely.
So the good thing
before I lose my thought on that, I love it because I feel like this movie, Tested, is one of restoration, and it gives you peace ultimately. But what really resonates with me about this is that the God we serve gives us grace. And it appears you have ultimately given yourself grace. You went through all these things as a child. You went through heartache. You went through pain. You went through abandonment. However, of course, we have to remember that we have to give ourselves grace. You had that tragic situation happen with the girlfriend who committed suicide, and then you were able to play the character. I think when you had an opportunity to play that character, it was a healing moment for you. I believe it was an opportunity for you to grieve and go through that process. So ultimately speak to that, because I know we're running out of time. Grace is major. Grace is awesome when we think about it, but a lot of times people forget to give themselves grace.
This is a very good point. And this may sound a little strange to you, but at that moment of pain, I was in so much pain. I said, "Lord, take me now if you want." I said, I surrendered. I said, "I can't take no more. I'm ready to go." And in that ready to go-ness, a strange power enveloped me for some reason, because I had made a choice. I said, "I'm ready to go home. I'm done. This is it for me." But he says, you're not done.
Mm.
He empowered me because I surrendered. And that's where the grace comes from, humility and surrender. You say, okay, take me if you want me. If you don't, fill me up and let me get to work, you know?
Mm.
So that's how it happened for me, the grace.
I love it. I love it.
All right, we're going to take another break, audience. I mean, this has been a lot. Take it in. It's time to be aware. All things conversational. We'll be back after this.
Is your mental health being challenged with everything going on in society? Some men in the Houston community are standing up to say they will make a difference and lessen the impact that police brutality has had on the world. Welcome to the Chamber, a place where healing begins.
What profits a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? They know not, nor do they understand, because the head of this house walks in darkness. For those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Repent, or else. Come unto thee quickly and remove this candlestick from this place. Except I'm the judge and the jury. Did you hear what I said? I'm the judge and the jury. Repent and do the first works, or else. There's somebody coming.
Welcome back to All Things Conversational. And what they say, all good things must come to an end. So as we conclude, I'm going to give each and every one of you an opportunity to recap. Tell us what you think. Sherry, starting with you.
Well, first of all, Mr. Ratcliffe, you have such excitement when you're discussing the movie, and there's just a twinkle in your eye, and especially from the little tidbits that you've given us. My curiosity, and I'm sure along with the audience, is when are we going to be able to see this great movie? That's my question to you, because it is just in conversation and just the way that everything has been presented to us. I'm excited. I want to see it. So when are we going to be able to see this great movie?
Well, my projected date is for a Christmas release. We're going through some funding still right now. It's a 21-day shoot where we have editors and music in place. So my goal is for a Christmas release this year.
Okay, great.
And I'd just like to add, I love the fact that you have given yourself as a sacrifice to the world. So I feel like the audience, I feel like we should appreciate it, because there are so many people who want to know their purpose. And I believe that since you have found your purpose, and I feel like I found my purpose, I also feel like you too, as the audience or whoever's viewing, can find your purpose as well, because we all have one. So I'm sure it feels amazingly awesome to know that before you leave the earth, that you have found what it is that you need to do, and that you're going to be able to impact people on a large scale. Who doesn't like a great movie? I love movies. And so I want to say thank you for using your gifts to actually spread truth, love, and equality.
Thank you so much. God bless you for that. First of all, everyone out there, thank you for watching this, and God bless you. And remember, everything that's happened to you is a test. Just remember that. It's not an ultimatum. And just remember, audience members, you have a choice. You're not a victim. God's in your heart. You're strong and powerful. You have a choice. Own your own power. The Tested movie is also in conjunction with the Tested movement, which is a global movement for world peace. I have two websites, testedthemovie.com and testedthemovement.com. And on the movement, you'll see podcasts of people like yourself who have been tested. And you're invited to tell your story here on the podcast. But also there's a PayPal link for friends and family, a tax deduction link where you can contribute to get perks, t-shirts, be part of the movie if you want. So if you'd be kind enough, if you feel it's right for you to go to testedthemovement.com and then click on the PayPal link, and you can have a tax deduction there, that donation.
All right. Audience, we thank you for being a part of this show today. And always remember, we are all being tested, but at the end of the test is a testimony. And we want everyone to know that no matter what you're going through, that God is able to pull you. So with that being said, from us at All Things Conversational to you, be aware, be reminded that you're tested, but you can pass the test. Thank you for being a part of All Things Conversational. I am your host, Nikiva Bryant.